We are live. We are live. Yes. Yet another session, Friday afternoon here in Toronto. The weather is changing a little bit though, but I can see leaves turning a little red. A fall is around the corner, Doreen. So this session that we do on career mentoring, Friday Connect, we do it every Friday. Today the only two people who are here are those who don't work for anyone. We are solopreneurs. So we schedule our own things, but others are also to some extent like Irfan is a solopreneur, but he's in Vancouver. Aston has few meetings, so has Hafsa and Barros. So, but we can't miss the opportunity to talk to you folks, those who are joining us on LinkedIn today. We do these sessions every Friday. This is, I think, our fourth week since we restarted this Friday Connect series. And the way we started, we do a very like quick, less than a minute introduction of whoever is here as mentors. And then today we have a very, very special guest, my LinkedIn friend, who is a supply chain expert based out of New York, and James Martin. Interestingly, I connected him on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is a big thing in my life, at least. So I connected with Doreen on LinkedIn, and rest of those all those mentors who join in. Some of them we never met in person, but those are our LinkedIn friends. So so before any further chip chat, let's go to Doreen and ask her, Doreen, quick introduction, and then we will bring James.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon from sunny Ontario, Canada. It's a beautiful Friday today. I always look forward to our LinkedIn Live sessions. I want to see who's here, what questions are on your mind. It's we're heading into the weekend. It's always fun to do the podcast on a Friday. Everyone seems to be in a better mood. But I'm really, really excited to hear from James today. We have our first guest that we have on this live podcast, and in the supply chain industry, which is just monstrous. I mean, it's huge, and the opportunities in this world are endless. So I want to hear more from James, and we're going to quiz him. We're going to ask him questions and find out a little bit more about him and what's going on in the supply chain world. So let's bring him up, Hamad.
Let's bring him up. Here you go, James Martin from New York. How are you, James?
I'm very well. Thank you very much, Hamad. Thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you, Doreen, for your kind words.
And this is such an amazing opportunity for us to learn more about what's happening in the supply chain industry from someone who is in supply chain industry for years, and I'm really amazed to see your community, James, on LinkedIn, which is I think about 160k followers in that community, in that group. So
165, but who's counting?
165, yeah, 165. So this is amazing. So we have got two people join. I mean, we've got more people, but at least two people from supply chain industry joining in. One is Rizwan Abbas joining in from Finland, and Tariq Zaman joining in from Karachi. Interestingly, both have been through the LinkedIn training program that I do. So thanks for joining in. The only request I have for those who are here, if you want to send a message to more people about this mentoring session, just press the repost button, and with that you'll be able to post this uh, podcast onto your feed, and other people will be able to join in as well. um, so my first question, if you allow me to ask James, in the past few years supply chain industry has completely transformed, and what we saw, kind of most people talking about supply chain, um, was during COVID period, when we had shortage of almost everything, right? Uh, in the West, the joke we had was about toilet paper, right, being purchased by people in big stock and kept there, and there was this big challenge. So Tell us a little bit about supply chain industry itself, how it has evolved in the past 10, 15 years, and what are some of the exciting opportunities that are coming forward?
Well, Hamad, it's timely that you mentioned COVID. So no one really outside of the supply chain world knew what supply chain was until they started encountering supermarket shortages, things like toilet paper and so forth. So it was always supply chain constrictions, etc. I started before it was really referred to supply chain. I started back in the 80s when it was still known as purchasing. It started to transition to procurement with the idea that it isn't just some kind of a function where you just place orders through and get whatever from your organization. And there's actually two disciplines. There's direct and indirect. So direct is if you're in the supply chain world purchasing raw materials, commodities, very heavily involved with logistics, with trying to source products, whatever, if you're a manufacturer in particular, where do you get the best sources from? So that's direct. Indirect are the services typically that support an organization. So that's where I've actually spent my entire career, has been on the indirect side, but the disciplines are very similar. For a brief time, I did some consulting and I was in the sourcing world assisting two global companies with a tariff impact going back to 2017. And how were they going to find sources that would be able to lower the components going into their end products and so forth? So I got a sense of how that direct side of supply chain worked, and it's equally as chaotic as the indirect side. So the biggest challenge is always, how do I stay current? How do I keep knowledge of what's happening and the changes, because I have my day-to-day job I need to do, and I like to have a life outside of work. So that's always been the struggle. So putting supply chain on the main stage, so to speak, thank you COVID, it's created, I guess it's a bad publicity, but all publicity is good in some way. Now there's an understanding of how important the role is and what opportunities exist for people who may not be sure what they want to do in the business world or not, but it is certainly a growing discipline.
Yeah. Uh, so I know a lot of engineers go into supply chain as well, right? There was a time when engineers would only go and fix things, like engineering. But I know, like Dr. Mudassir, our common friend, is also an engineer to begin with. Then he moved into supply chain. I would really like to ask you, somebody who is graduating, um, regardless of what the discipline may be, how easy or how challenging would it be to start into supply chain?
I would say it's not going to be easy if you don't have a knowledge of where to go. I think, and I look back at all the roles I've ever gotten, I think you have to first work on your own network of friends, of family. It's not too far of a stretch to think that somebody might be involved with, if for an organization, if they're in sales, they're selling something, that something has to be purchased, has to be made and so forth. So that could be an in. You get more introductions from a warm handshake, from a recommendation, than you will be seeing something that's posted on LinkedIn and it's a supply chain role, and then within minutes 300 people have applied. You're not just not going to get through that. So starting with your own network, learning who's got what opportunities and so forth, then whatever interests you, if you have, and technology just continues to evolve, it continues to amaze. Doesn't matter, just look at your own home, how much technology is there. So
Mhm.
whether you're direct or indirect, if you have an understanding of technology, software, contracts, etc., you have an interest in it rather, that's an excellent place to start, because that's one of the trickiest managed categories to manage in any kind of a supply chain world. So sometimes that tends to be easy, but learning how, taking online courses, learning about what you can be most interested in is a good starting place as well.
Yes, you're so right. So, just while you were talking about online courses and stuff, my younger daughter is doing her undergrad in political science and criminology. And as someone who talks a lot, I kept talking to her about what she wants to do next. She doesn't want to be a lawyer because things lawyers are crazy people. They spend like 16, 18 hours in their work, so they don't have enough time, luxury time or recreational time. She doesn't want to do that. And in that conversation, the alternate dispute resolution came up as a topic. And that's a topic that not many people talk about, right? As in and it's a very good topic. You get paid nicely and a lot of respect as well. So again, as a coach and a mentor, and we'll go to Doreen for her question as well. I have also not seen many young people thinking supply chain as an option. But those who get in, they enjoy it like you enjoy it. And I've got like Tariq Zaman and Rizwan and all these people who are in my network. They really enjoy supply chain as a profession. We've got some questions coming up as well. And those who are joining us, please also tell us where are you joining in from, so that we know how far our voice is going. Somehow I see that it's not as busy as it usually gets, but I think with the passage of time and we keep talking, more people will join us. But Doreen, while I display some of the questions, you have anything to ask here?
Oh, yeah, sure. So, in my past career, it was a corporate career where I worked with the top four banks in Canada for over 20 years. And, although I did a lot of things within the organization, I did have a couple of roles in vendor management, which led, interacting with other departments like strategic sourcing, vendor management, uh, what's the other groups there? I can't remember, supply chain, so on and so forth. And I noticed that, only when you're in it do you see how wide and how deep it is, and when you look at the compliance aspect, and I think the supply chain industry is also heading into a very regulated industry because it's so big and it could be uncontrollable. And then you've got international and global touch points, which makes it even stricter and harder to maneuver through. Technology, you mentioned, yes. Without the right technology, these roles are very cumbersome, very paper intense, and you got to do so much that you're spending time with during the day just to kind of dot the I's and cross the T's. So technology plays a huge part in it. So there's another aspect of the supply chain industry with technology. But the one thing to me that stood out the most, no matter where you are and who you're talking to across the world or even on home base, I think relationship management is the key aspect of winning in this industry, and I would like to hear more from you on what you think about, relationship management and how you interact with other groups, how you keep your vendors close, that, you want your, vendors who are low risk and providing you with the best possible solutions for your organizations to use them. So tell me a little bit more about what you think about that.
So I'm going to touch on two parts of it. So a supply chain manager is doing two things. They're working internally with a stakeholder, because a stakeholder usually needs something. So in your experiences previously, you had to get something done. Sometimes you don't even know, how does this stuff get here? It just gets here. I just use it. But there is a path behind it. So to be a successful supply chain professional, you've got to deliver more than what was asked. And in most organizations, there isn't really a clear understanding. Why do I have to go through you? Why can't I just go to the supplier directly? There's a value that's behind it. And individuals who try and go on their own oftentimes find out, "Hmm, maybe that wasn't the best idea." So working with a stakeholder and providing that support, even if you make multiple, you can't, nobody really makes calls anymore, but multiple contacts, whether it's through chat or through email, what can I do? Can I help you? And so forth. When you've now turned it so that the stakeholder is now coming to you because you've delivered, because you've provided the value, that's your measurement of success.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's a happy problem because now they're coming to you for everything. But
Mm-hmm.
they now trust you, you've built that. That's not something that's often, that's not taught in any institution or online necessarily. You just have to provide that level of service to individuals. To a supplier, you looking for a partner. For the 37 8+ years I've been in this industry, discipline I guess to call it, I've had a positive experience with probably 8 to 10 people. Business development used to be called sales, representing a supplier. And I would follow the individual to wherever they would go versus being part of that. Oh, they left, but I'm still staying with the company because that individual listened. They were looking to solve my problems. Stakeholders usually have needs and challenges, and that's what a supply chain professional is trying to do, is trying to remove their pain, trying to figure out what's the best way to do that. And if I find somebody on the supplier side that's willing to do that, then I want to continue that relationship. I want to broaden it, give them as much business as possible, because ultimately they're making me look good in front
Mm-hmm.
of the stakeholder. And a good supplier representative will understand that. There are many good ones. There are many that I would never want to do business with again because they just didn't get it. And it's human nature.
Yeah.
So a good supply chain professional understands that they have to balance between the two, or they have to crack the whip because they're not getting what they need from the supplier on representing the stakeholder. They do, but generally, my experience, I rarely come down to a point where something like a dispute needs to go. That's when you kind of step away and let
Mm-hmm.
legal handle that. But
Right.
most suppliers understand that the good ones will continue to provide you that level of service, and they build partnerships. That's the key.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And the more oversight that you have, and there's huge departments that just do oversight and monitoring and continuous improvement, that sort of thing in terms of the processes. And I think that helps to keep everyone on an even keel. But there's a lot going on. But yeah, I see these questions coming up about the tariffs. That's what was on my mind as well. So Hamad, I'm going to let you take over the question there that's come up.
Yeah, so our first question is from Samir from UAE, and of course, if the whole world is worried about tariffs. How are tariffs affecting the business? What way around are they adopting? Because we know that, I mean, I think at least we are convinced, rest of the world is convinced that ultimately it's going to be the US customer that has to pay that money. But, what do you think, James? What's happening?
If you've got a top of the line supply chain organization, you've gone through this before. So I referenced earlier, this isn't the first experiment in tariff uh, manipulation, I guess is the way to say it, from the US market. It happened during the first Trump administration.
Mm.
It and it was really more of a jolt to the system. A lot of manufacturing, a lot of sourcing was deeply embedded in China then, and you didn't have a plan to get out of it rapidly when you saw those price increases suddenly hit. How do you pass them along and so forth? Eventually, frankly, a lot of those tariffs never went away. A lot of them stayed in place. They just quietly left the news cycle. But the companies that were planning were beginning to look and see, moving the dependencies out of places like China, trying to get to another country for sourcing. So countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, India benefited from this. And it's not as if those things happened overnight. They had to ramp up themselves. So that's been one of the things that I've seen trying to prepare for that. As far as a tariff shock, it's a pricing strategy. It would be no different. We've seen these in the past when we've had an oil shock, when there's been an unfortunate weather event, whether it was a volcano erupting in Iceland or this unfortunate the tsunami. Those things have long repercussions through the supply chain. This wasn't as much of a shock to the system as this was being planned. So a lot of things happen behind the scenes for the better supply chain professionals to know what's going on, and to not go through the first shock that happened 4+ years ago, to to sort of diversify where they're getting their manufacturing from, their sourcing from, give themselves more options, and the efficiency as well in manufacturing, in delivery, with things, we're going to mention it now, AI, all that has had a lasting effect. So as much as it's there and there's a lot of fear for it, we're not seeing that immediate impact, at least in the US market. There was a lot of buying before a lot of the tariffs went in. So that spurred some activity, but the smarter supply chain professionals already had a plan in place, already had a strategy to offset what was likely going to be these tariffs.
Do you think that the supply chain industry has recovered a little bit after COVID, or is it still kind of ramping up?
It's recovered. What happened for COVID is it just locked people out of the offices. So
Mhm.
as much as that, the option of working remote, whether you were at home or wherever you were allowed to be, we were still able to move along, thankfully, because technology was there.
Mhm.
There's been, for the first time, a recognition that this is really a key component of business. And perhaps we weren't giving it the necessary sources that it had to get in order to be super successful.
Mhm.
And I'm going to mention this earlier. I wanted to say this is something that you had said before, Hamad. When I first got involved, started fresh out of college in supply chain before it was called that, there really wasn't very much education available. So now I think most higher universities, even online courses, you can get educated and pick up some really great skill sets before you even enter the workforce on supply chain. That just didn't exist before.
Mhm.
It really was, you started at the bottom, you had the more seasoned people above you, and you had to pay your dues, and little by little, as you proved yourself, you moved up. That was sort of my model a little bit. That's not necessarily the case anymore. So you can enter right in
Mhm.
because of the importance of what supply chain is, the visibility that it's gotten, and
Right.
just jump right in.
Let's expand a little bit on that. Sorry, Hamad, if I can just ask one more
Oh,
question
sure.
over to you.
Good.
So when we're talking about the changes in the supply chain industry, and it's just getting bigger and crazier, when you look at it from a global perspective, from where you sit, where do you think more of the opportunities lie? Like, if we have people in the audience wondering, okay, I'd like to get into this thing, where do I start? Where do I go? Where are the jobs, right? Because there's so many platforms, so many silos to this industry. And part two to that question is, where are the jobs? Part two would be, what skills are required to get those jobs?
So the biggest industries, and this is based on a feedback I get from a LinkedIn group that I oversee, Supply Chain Leadership Network, and from my own observations and reading, etc. Right now, the manufacturing remains a bright spot, depending on where you are in the world. So, starting with North America, the US, that may not be as much of an opportunity as it's going to be in places like India, Eastern Europe, Vietnam, Malaysia, etc. So those are the companies, and China as well. Those are the countries that have a need for the manufacturing side, for supply chain professionals to be able to go in, help manage that process. Pharmaceuticals, healthcare, logistics, coal logistics. So uh, we're getting more and more cutting edge with all the availability of medicines today. How do you get them out? How do you source them, etc.? And no disruption in the pharmaceutical supply chain, because that can cause serious issues.
Mhm.
So you can make it now. How do you get it to the necessary places in the world? So the logistics side of it, I'm in cold logistics, which is just simply something that you have to ship, but it's got to stay cold. These are the areas that are becoming very important, because there's a there's a demand for things right away. Everything all the time was in a famous line in a famous song. People want to be able to get things rather quickly. Customers, they have that need for something right away. Who wants to go to a store when somebody from Amazon can deliver something to you in within 2 hours, and you think, oh, I
Mhm.
have to wait 2 hours. So
Mhm.
that's just changed. So logistics is huge, and in that ability to get something to a customer, whether it's business or consumer, you got to keep it somewhere. So warehousing is exploded
Mm.
logistics wise. Maybe the traditional warehouse picker off the shelf and packer, those roles may not be there, but the logistics and management of warehousing and knowing what your inventory is, whether in your country or globally or regionally. So that's huge. And another area which seems to be getting a lot of attention, or anything that's in renewables, or anything with a grid electricity. So most of our infrastructure is probably 80 years older, whatever. It's a need. There's more demand than ever before. So supporting that manufacturing, that distribution of even the basic, how do you get electricity out there? So those are the areas that really seem to, as other countries become more functional in manufacturing, etc., they have a demand for electricity. They have a demand for energy. So energy management, how do you get there? How do you improve the grid, etc.? Those are areas, and you need people behind in supply chain, acquiring, managing how these things get done.
Wow, amazing. Seems like a spider web.
Well, it's an area that doesn't have as much promise. You have your typical brick and mortar locations, so that's under a lot of pressure these days. I wouldn't say that that's an area of growth, and it still remains to be seen. From what I've seen, areas that have anything to do with legacy fossil fuel, right? So that there's I don't know if that's an area that's expanding or not. It always seems to be something that, and I wouldn't say denigrated, but becomes the area where people least likely want to go into, because it's not
Mhm.
friendly environmental. But I think there's more discoveries of natural gas and oil happening all the time. Somehow that's got to get from where it is to the end, right? So there's those another areas of opportunity.
So it's quite complex, as James, you were talking about, supplying power from or using a grid, from the station to the homes, or to the manufacturing. I never thought that as a supply chain, right? But that's, you're so right. This is supply chain, right? So how do you supply power, generate from the place that it's generated to the end user? That's also supply chain. But that's, so that means that engineers who are getting in and they have some kind of an electrical engineering degree, they could actually opt and look at this possibility. So this question coming in from Oves, and I see another question from Oves there as well. It's probably a comment that supply chain now supervises the whole operation. How true that is? Is it the whole operation or most of it? Where, how do you respond to this I would say comment?
Well, I'll give you one of my favorite responses, which is weak, but it depends. So it's going to depends on the industry, depends on the maturity of the organization.
Mhm.
So you mentioned Doreen. you were in the financial world in your past,
Mm-hmm.
and if myself as well, with a very large global bank, very heavily regulated.
Mm-hmm.
So you had government agencies, you had procedures and processes and audits and compliance, risk, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've been in organizations where I was signing contracts for $2 million with
Wow.
no one giving me any. It was it was unsettling to come
Right.
out of that. So it's really going to depend upon what that industry is. Quality control, whether your organization is looking to adhere to how many ISO certifications are out there, and they just keep growing, right? But those things are designed, they're designed to have the standardization around the world so that you're worrying less about whether a component is going to work in your manufacturing process because your supplier is already ISO certified in that area. And now it becomes the focus doesn't become on the quality of the product. It's going to become, okay, well, I don't want to rely just on this one. Can I find two or three other sources and can I get them closer to home? Near shoring. So near shoring is something that is happening all over the world. Eastern Europe trying to bring more manufacturing back from China, certainly in the US, certainly in parts of Europe, excuse me, certainly in parts of Asia as well. So there are all that nearshoring. You having somebody with an understanding that we have high level precision in what we manufacture and having those level of controls is very important versus no, we're just getting plastic extrusion done. We don't care who's doing it anywhere in the world. Just get it out there. So it's going to really range on the what you're making. What are you? Where are you working? What are you doing? That's basically what it comes down to.
And again, the favorite question that we are getting all the time is about AI. I know AI is now deeply involved in supply chain with a lot of robotics going on, and there's a challenge. Okay, how much AI we should adopt? I think everybody is talking about losing jobs and stuff like that. But here, my first question is, how much adoption you are seeing supply chain has actually uh, you know kind of AI in supply chain? How much adoption has happened already?
It's early, so the adoption is based on you've got legacy systems that are in place. Most organizations are going to have some kind of a ERP. That's the system that's managing whether you're a two-person operation, you're not doing anything on paper anymore, or you're one of the biggest global companies in the world. You're going to have a system, and that's embedded. There's legacy if you're going to make changes to it. AI is trying to come in and say we can replace parts of that with this tool. It's more of a question of is this going to be helpful or is this just going to be another add on that moving to a cloud didn't solve or moving from a PC to a mainframe, etc. So it it's still out there being fine tuned. The companies that own or manufacture these legacy systems or produce these legacy systems, they themselves are adding AI. You've probably got an AI option in the StreamYard that we're using here right now. Is it helpful or not? It remains to be seen. It, for supply chain individuals, the best thing to do is to not be afraid of it. Learn it. Learn what it can do. You hear AI agents. Really, it's just something that's repetitive that you have to do that you can have an AI agent do for you and get to you quickly. You still need to have your intuition. You still need to have your knowledge of suppliers, of the marketplace, etc. But now you've gone instead of walking around uh, a long distance. Now you've got a shorter path. So can see how that can do? Embrace where you can an AI agent to make that job easier. And I'm still looking to see how some of I've used it. I've actually used. I won't name the name because I don't want to give out a free endorsement. But I saw an area which was laborious in terms of contract review, and I was able to actually use an AI agent, which It was an instant
Oh,
benefit because it's
amazing.
not wrong. It's wonderful. So looking at that, looking at where your problems are, and how that can an AI solution can come on there and help out.
Right.
That's the biggest plus.
Excellent, excellent. Our guest next week has her own business, and it's to do with going green in terms of environmental assessments and sustainability. And I know right now with the supply chain industry, they're so heavily focused on just getting the job done, moving things across borders and, dealing with tariffs and competition and risk and all of that. Do you think that the supply chain industry is even thinking about sustainability right now? Are they heading in that direction, or is it not yet happening?
No, it's been happening for quite some time.
Okay.
So in fact, the nature of what we do is take a 5-step process and bring it down to 4, maintaining the same level of quality and hopefully a lower price. If you do that, that's a simple explanation. You're going to succeed. In that efficiency, you're almost hopefully by definition using less.
Hmm.
So with that mindset, if you're using less, then you're sort of moving towards sustainability. But now that if you have a sustainability mindset, then you're looking to see, well, it's not just about improving on the process using less. I want to see where the supplier is based. Is that supplier where they're manufacturing? Are they using green energy? Are they using the most efficient way to get something to my organization? I'll give you an example. Many years ago, I worked for what was then News Corporation, Rupert Murdoch's old media empire, which included the 20th Century Fox studios. And a moneymaker was printing money with the DVDs. And when DVDs first came out, they were in these very long boxes, and they would design that way so they would stand out on the shelf. Walmart, which is possibly one of the biggest shifting companies in terms of supply chain efficiency, pretty much announced to the studios, we're not going to put your big DVDs on the shelf anymore. Figure a way to get them down and reduce the size.
Hmm.
So the studios really didn't have a choice, and it was an interesting project for me, where we had to figure out, how do you shorten it, use less packaging. So once they got past that, I don't know, taboo, that we
Hmm.
didn't have to have these big things. Then they said, okay, we want you to pre-package in a POP display, a point of purchase display, DVDs right there, so that when you load them onto your truck to ship out, we just want to take them right off and put them right on the floor. And all the efficiency that went into that was amazing, just step by step. How do you and in that process, you have to make sure that you're sourcing from sustainable sources in terms of the printing, the proper inks, etc., minimal waste. It just was amazing. So when you start thinking that way, it almost becomes second nature.
Hmm.
So that sustainability mindset is there in a lot of cases to be more efficient. And if you're actually able to use less fuel, less electricity, natural gas, coal burning, whatever it is, to do something, by default, you're becoming sustainable in that respect. I don't know if you can totally erase it, but
Right.
it certainly helps. And you have that mindset. If you once you train your mindset to always look at that, then that becomes second nature.
Amazing.
And then it would have a compounding effect as well, chain reaction or compounding effect, whatever uh, you want to actually put it. I had a client who was an expert in net zero, and with that client, I worked for almost a year, and really, I learned a lot as to by doing little things, literally little things, you can improve sustainability or you can
Hmm.
achieve near sustainability. So we have this question coming in from Ashwaq Ali Khan. I don't know how much you can respond to this one. For supply chain, what is the best AI in the market? But I think it's not one AI. Maybe it's like you talked about AI agents. There could be other things as well. If you want to respond to this, please.
I guess it's going to be across multiple categories. So depending on what step in the process, if you're a supply chain professional, one of your roles is having to go out and do sourcing. So who are my suppliers? Uh, uh, there are AI tools. A lot of what has been established is cloud companies, SaaS tools, and so forth. They are themselves innovating to AI agents. So I actually would almost start there in these areas. Another area is supplier management, and then, as I mentioned before, contracting. How do you review contracts and so forth? So without me actually giving an endorsement to any of a particular company, from what I've seen from my own personal use, contracts has always been a struggle. Just getting through them and understanding it. And I could read a paragraph and not have an issue with it, but an internal legal person says, you can't say that. Okay. But an AI tool produces the ability to have all your requirements in. So it's instantly comparing against the supplier's contract. And the suppliers want to use their own contract. So that it would kick out and tell you, you've got minor differences. There's no big deal. You've got medium. Maybe you want to make it. No, you've got a lot to negotiate here. This is not good. This language is not acceptable, and so forth. And that's done instantly. So to me, that has been a time saver in that respect, and being able to do that. I think probably uh, looking at how orders come in, if it's not already in a system, how they're ingested and distributed amongst your team. So you will, depending on what categories you manage. I've managed all of them in the indirect side. uh, how do you make sure that work is balanced? Somebody could be doing 5 projects, somebody could be doing 20, and on paper it looks like the 20 project person is doing a lot more work. In reality, the person that's got the 5 projects, they could be taking months, RFPs, lots of negotiations. The 20 are just simple, quick turnarounds, easy renewals, or whatever. So having an AI agent balance that work, see what the complexity of it is. And that's also how you can sort of bring people along as you're developing them in your staff. I want to be able to have a well-rounded individual on my team. So I can't just keep them in one area. I got to get them exposure to others. Can they team up and so forth? So having an AI tool to be able to see that and balance the workload, and get the feedback from your staff. How's it going? How do you feel, and so forth? Because quite often you have your own job. You forget to sometimes ask and check in. How's everything going? Are you getting what you need? Are you getting my support, etc.? And there's tools for that as well. Very long answer, Hamad, I'm sure, but it's again going to be depend upon where in the process you see AI agents or AI helping you the most.
Yeah, I this would while you were talking, I one question, just hit my head as well. Are we using AI in some kind of a predictive analysis in supply chain, or have you seen it happening? Like,
I have seen it happening, and it's improving accuracy. What it's really been able to do is ingest lots of information and customize. So one of the best tools that has really, what I would recommend, I myself am a little intimidated by it, so I will refer to other people, Tableau. So Tableau ingests huge quantities of information, and you can turn around if you've got somebody who's can do a Tableau, buy that person lunch, give them whatever they need, because they're going to be a saver for you. AI agents on top of that can really look at patterns that you've now organized in Tableau and spit out things that you didn't even see. And I'll go
yeah,
one further.
mm,
uh, I actually attempted to build my own AI agent, because one of the areas that I was always looking for assistance with is negotiations. So how do I make sure that I'm prepared, that I have the best information with this on the supplier? Am I getting a good deal, or am I getting hosed? So trying to find an AI agent or an AI tool to help me with that, I went and made my own. It's crude, but it came back with a lot of information, which actually worked a few times. So I like it. So I'm going to go further into it. So I would say that that's another area people should
Mhm.
not be fearful of. Learn how to make your own AI agents, learn how to use this. It's almost as if what Excel did to the spreadsheet world when it was first introduced in the 80s,
Yeah.
it transformed. Everybody uses Excel. That tool won't go away. Learn AI agents, learn how to do it, not to be afraid of it.
Yeah, I grew up in the time of Lotus 123.
Same,
Right?
it depending on the company, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
we Lotus 123 or Excel. Yeah.
yeah. And I created, so, during my British High Commission's job time, I mean, when you're young, you actually, at least, at that point in time, you are more enthusiastic. You spend more time in creating something which is unusual. So I put together a very complex, like, data collection system into Lotus 123. If you ask me to do it now, I won't be able to do it. I don't know how I did that, but it was so nice. We used to get like data from all the commercial officers about their visits, reactions, and everything. So every month you would get that data, you punch it in, and you get results. And they all were using independent spreadsheets. So I just kind of created a master spreadsheet. I connected all these spreadsheets in it somehow, and they would just fill it up, and we would not have to go back and do more laborious work. The data would be there. Lotus 123, then Excel, and Excel is so advanced now. Like I think I probably use like 2% of what Excel could do for us.
Right.
So you're so right. We can literally build our own AI agents. I had a witty question, but let's look at some interesting questions coming in from supply chain professionals themselves. Usman from Lahore, how supply chain knowledge complements to project management managers involved in cross-border collaboration for the field of heavy projects.
Well,
So,
I think as a supply chain professional, you're now going to be tasked with understanding what are those project managers' goals, what do they need to get done. And a good project manager is not running things. So they're making sure that everybody else is doing their job. Where are the flat spots that need to be addressed, etc. So understanding their timelines, their needs. It's a recurring theme, but where's the pain in this process? So whether it's cross-border collaboration, heavy field projects, or whether it's just as simple, we're rolling out a new version of this internal up system and it's an update or whatever it is. And how many times have things been pushed to you in your experience in the past where you log on one morning and all of a sudden, oh, we're on this new version and no one taught you, right? So being close to that project manager and understanding what are they looking to achieve, what do they have, the something called key performance indicators, KPIs. What is the project manager's KPIs? If you understand that and you understand how they're going to be successful, then you can step back and plan what do they need. So if it is cross border, okay, then what to where and what are the requirements in that particular country that it's going to be going to, what's going to be the impact if there are tariffs, if there's any implication of a disruption in the supply chain, uh, any kind of raw material, rare earth materials are a big thing these days too. They're talked about quite a bit, but understanding, the more you understand, whether it's a project manager or as a stakeholder, the more you understand what their needs are, and you can solve them, and you can solve them quietly and continuously, efficiently. You're there for them. You've got a friend. You've got a friend for life. You've got somebody that's going to be very dependent and actually then look to you for your expertise. One thing I hear quite a bit is the complaint in the supply chain world is we don't have a seat at the table. And I don't think there's a table anymore, to be honest with you. It just doesn't exist that way. There within organizations, there's lots of silos. So figuring out how do you get a seat at the table, you got to get past that. You just have to be a high performing individual whether you're skilled in all categories or not, understanding what you need to do, you may get pulled in because of your reputation and do something that you never had to do. And I had that experience when I was working for a large bank. I had always done indirect services. So whether it's contingent workforce, technology, pardon me, I was asked to do sourcing for a subterranean bank vault. And I had no idea. But as soon as I was asked, can you do this? I said, absolutely, no problem. And when that call was over, I jumped in, like everybody might do, and started doing research on Google. What's going on with subterranean bank vaults, etc. So it's getting myself educated and learning it, and then coming back, because the reality is the person I was supporting had no idea, or they had inherited this, and once I understood that, I became their advocate for things. Oh, no, we don't want to do this. Let's look at this. Does it even need to be here, and so forth. So you're presenting those different options. You're really giving them. You're trying to demonstrate the value that you can bring, and that's the
And
key.
and learning must never end. I mean, this is something that I keep writing on my posts as well. Learning must never end, regardless of what your age is or how young you are. I think more you learn, more interesting life will become. And just to share with you an interesting story, again from my trade investment time at the British High Commission, we had a requirement coming in from for Christmas trees. So somebody wanted to import Christmas trees from the UK, and the company was in the oil and gas sector. And obviously, when the inquiry came in front of me, I said, why are they why are they really interested in importing Christmas trees from the UK? But anyway, it was an inquiry, so I had to respond. I started looking at Christmas tree manufacturers or growers in the UK. But if something was like hitting my head, I think there's something wrong. I think I'm not really getting it. So I created that list and everything, but I went to see my uh, you know his name was Mike Hewitt, a great guy, the head of the section. I said, Mike, this inquiry came in. I've created this list, but still there's something missing. I'm not really getting it. And he looked at me like this. He was like, he used to wear like big glasses. He looked at me like this. Hamad, this company is in the oil and gas sector. I said, yes, this is what I am. But why are they? There's something called this. So there is a gadget that is fitted at the wellhead, and that gadget is called uh, Christmas tree, because uh, I don't know what it does, but the crude that comes out of it, it actually makes like a Christmas tree. So when it comes out, it actually sprays like a Christmas tree. That's why it's called Christmas tree. So I learned something new that something like 35 years ago still sticks in my head, and it's like a funny story that I share with people. You need to learn, because and learning is fun. I enjoyed it. If I share it with someone today as well, people like it. It's a great story to share. So here is my question for you, the witty one. What is the biggest supply chain secret nobody talks about, but every insider knows? Anything interesting?
A secret that no one talks about. Well, I'm not certain as if it's a secret as much as it's more of a fact. Um, Not every organization does well. And so there are instances of layoffs and cutbacks and so forth. And typically, if the supply chain department is not led or supported by the right individual within that company, that's one of the first areas where you have a layoff, because it's not sales, right? And sales, they get the trips to the warm tropical areas and the President's Club and the fancy things, and the support teams don't. So that's a tough part of supply chain, that it can be as part of the cost cutting, not only in the materials, not only the logistics, but often in the labor. And it's not a good secret, right? So what I
Yeah.
would say, and I've been laid off, and it was very sudden, but it changed my perspective forever because I learned to watch for the signs. I learned to constantly be on top of what I'm doing, but keep an eye out there. What are the trends? What are the changes and so forth? Don't get complacent. So I would say maybe I can invert that a little bit to say the secret is always keep your eye out there for changes. I've worked at an insurance company, finance organization, technology, uh, so just a host of different corporations, different industries. I once sat in a conference next to a buyer from GM, and on this side was a gentleman. I can't remember the big company, but he was responsible for buying pig valves that went into heart. Artificial heart. So it was just so diverse. So constantly look to see the skill set that you use. It's a basic sort of tools that you keep with you. I feel you can take them and go to most places. When if somebody said to me, "I need you to go buy the components because we're building a nuclear plant right down the street," I know where my limitations are. I wouldn't necessarily said, "Yeah, sure, I can do it," like I do with the bank vault. But if they were looking for the support to get going, to start that company and so forth, I certainly would be able to do that. So knowing what that if you've got good set of skill sets, if you're an outgoing person, supporting stakeholders, friendly in that respect, you're going to succeed. And you should be able to take that to any category, any discipline within supply chain.
Amazing. And this you basically responded to Ojaz's question as well. I would not call it a thankless job. I think, I mean, if your senior doesn't appreciate you, any job could be a thankless job, right? If an organization has an appreciation of what you do, everyone has a role in an organization. I mean, a janitor would have a role, an electrician would have a role, you know, CEO has a role. Everyone has a role, and I think that's what we all need to appreciate. But Doreen has done a lot of work in her professional career as well as now when she coaches uh, executives on their career movement, changes, development. Doreen, thankless jobs. What do you think that thankless jobs is?
You know what? It's not a thankless job. It's what you want out of the job and what happiness you get from a job. You could, like you said, you could be a janitor and you could love your job, while someone else with a different personality will say, no, that's a thankless job. So, there's a right job and a right career for everybody. And you just have to get the most out of what you're doing and be happy in that area, which, I had this question burning in my mind for James is, James, you've been around the block, with supply chain. You've seen and done so many amazing things across diverse sectors. What would you say is why are you still doing what you're doing? And what is your favorite role within this industry that you could tell us?
I'm still doing what I'm doing because I haven't found else to do something else, to be honest with you. It was
Okay.
a role that I started fresh out of college, and uh, I, it, I've continuously advanced. So through, and I've had to learn. I've had mistakes, and my personality has changed. I'm a much different person today than I was 30 plus years ago. I
Mhm.
wish I could be the way I am today. If I could go back, who knows? But it's never been a situation where I've not had an opportunity. So it's
Mhm.
always there. Every company has it. And I'm sorry. What was the second part of your question?
It's just what do you enjoy most about what you do? Like, yeah.
I like the satisfaction that stakeholders get when something succeeds beyond what they expected, right? To deliver more
Hmm.
than they came for. And the 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 secret to my success is I'm very humble about it. It's just it's done. What else you got? You have something else you need help with, right?
Hmm.
And it actually then becomes you people then open up to you more. You get a better understanding of the organization, of how things operate,
Hmm.
and so forth, and they invite you in. So having that, the The drawback is that I get copied to go to so many meetings, so many calls. I CC'd on emails for awareness. It's too much, right?
Right.
So sometimes I just don't need to know about these things,
Yeah.
but it's I guess they're adoring fans, for lack of a better description, that they feel the need. Okay, you got to know what's going on here. Not all the time. I have a staff; they can handle it, and they can do these things.
Excellent.
One of my mentors, when I moved to a very senior position. One of my mentors said, if you want to get something done, give it to the busiest person in your team. So, so I think the busiest person gets more and more, but that also gives you a lot of exposure and visibility. James, we are up in the hour with the hour, 1 minute up actually, but thank you very much for your time today. It's an amazing discussion. I mean, I learned a lot. But those who probably have missed, we are going to put this up onto my YouTube channel. I'm going to share it with James, with Doreen, with our other mentors, and just spread the message across, because all these little things that you can get out of in these podcasts from a very experienced person could actually turn into gold mines for yourself. So keep learning and keep doing things. I think mentorship is what we all need, regardless of what we do in our lives, at what age we are. So please follow James Martin on LinkedIn. Follow Doreen as well. She is an amazing coach. She is my mentor as well.
Oh, thank you.
Although she
Likewise.
she always says I am her mentor, but I think we both scratch our backs in that way. But again, it's always a collaborative effort. We learn from each other. My next LinkedIn training program is starting on 24th of August. Anybody wants to join in, you can DM me directly. And if you want to discuss anything with James regarding your own career in supply chain, reach out to him. I'm sure he will find some time out to help you. If you want any career related training, resume writing, and stuff like that, interview coaching, reach out to Doreen. And this is the best podcast that happens on LinkedIn every Friday. And I claim that, this is the best podcast, because we come with these ideas and work throughout the week in creating these opportunities, these questions and conversations around the topic. So with that, James, thank you very much for your time. Doreen, any parting thoughts?
Nope, just it was a wonderful session. I wish it could have gone on longer. There's so much information to be imparted, and I'm glad we had James today. I think we probably need to do a part two at some other time.
Definitely.
So thank you, James, so much.
I
No,
appreciate the invite.
something that James has told me, like on offline as well, that maybe every 3-4 months we invite him and get some update about the industry,
Yeah,
whenever he has
A
time.
lot of
amazing.
pressure now. I have to come up with new material every time, but it's always changing. So
Yeah.
you never know. Thank you
Yes,
both very much for your kindness and the hosting and the questions and everybody who participated. I'm on LinkedIn. Reach out. Stay
absolutely.
active.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Bye bye, and have a wonderful weekend.
Bye-bye.